Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today's video, as you can guess in the title, is going to be a 5 fave girls names and 5 fave boys names. These are names that were on our list when we were obviously pregnant with one of our 6 children, and they are names that have always stuck about there but haven't been used. Some reasons as to why they haven't been used, but they are just basically names that we loved while we were pregnant with our 6 children. If you don't already know me from previous videos, I have 3 girls and I have 3 boys, so I have always been out there choosing names, because obviously when you've got 6 kids it gives you 6 opportunities to choose a baby name, and all my children have middle names as well, so I have had loads of opportunity to pick baby names. It is just one of the most exciting things, isn't it, when you get pregnant, is deciding what are you going to call your baby. So these names are names that if we were to have a 7th child I wouldn't now use. They were really top to my list, but with us we've always kept our baby name a secret, so these are names that were very very close, but there also is one more out of those categories that we would use if we were to have a 7th child. So just letting you, putting that out there, just in case if we get pregnant again, someone will say, oh, I can guess it's off the top 5, but there's just one more that I've like held back, that I've decided not to share, because they would be either boy name or girl name that we would use for a 7th child, if we ever have a 7th child. I'm not saying we are, but if we ever did, you know, if we've got 6 already. Anyway, let's crack on with what my fave boys names are to begin with. So the first name on my list for boys names is Troy. Now I don't know why I like this name, but I've liked it since I was pregnant with Nathan. He's my eldest boy, who's nearly 10, and I've just always thought it's such a lovely boy's name. Someone once said to me, oh, why don't you call your baby Troy, because I knew I was having a boy at the time, and I've not really heard it. And then a lot later on, obviously there was High School Musical that came out, and there was a person there called Troy, and then obviously there was the film Troy, so it has been out there, but I personally do not know anyone else called Troy. But it was on top of our list for a boy's name. It's quite just quite a nice boy's name, really. I think it's just quite firm and strong boy's name, so that is number 1 on our boys list. The second boy's name that we really liked, but it's always been there, but we knew that we would never use, was Jacob. Now Jacob is a very popular boy's name, but I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to use it. I absolutely love the name, but for me, I like to have names that aren't particularly really popular, and also I never pick a name that I know somebody else who is already using that name. It's a personal thing that I've just always done, so I would never pick a name for my baby knowing a friend or a relative or someone who lived on the same street as me had a baby with that name. I just think it's something that you just do not do, and it's quite personal, you know, it's a big deal, you call your baby a name, and that's just how I am basically, because I just feel really awkward if I was to call my baby the same name as someone who was down the street. So yeah, so that's the reason why we didn't use Jacob, because we know a lot of Jacobs, but it is a really lovely boy's name. The third boy's name that I really liked was Luke. Now Luke, the only reason we have never ever used it is because our surname is Wright, and every time I say it I always think it sounds like Luke Wright. So when I say Luke Wright, it sounds as if I'm saying in a Scottish accent, look right. And maybe it's only me that hears that, I don't know, but it just doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound like it goes with the surname. So that is the reason why we've held off from using Luke, because in my head I feel like he'd probably get the P taken out of him and someone would say, Luke Wright, Luke Wright. So yeah, that's the reason why we haven't used the name Luke. The fourth boy's name, which I love and Eddie absolutely hated, Eddie is my husband, is Wolf, spelt W-O-L-F, as in wolf, as in the animal. Now, I've liked this for absolutely ages. Eddie has absolutely hated it. He just does not do like animal names, flower names, place names for babies. It's just, you know, if someone else calls the baby, that's absolutely fine, but for our babies, he's just not keen on it at all. So when I said Wolf, he was like, no, that he'll just get like absolutely like destroyed at school being called Wolf. But I just think it's such a lovely boy's name. I just could imagine one of our boys being called Wolf, but Eddie was an absolute no. And even though I've always like thrown the names out there, we've always ended up agreeing on one of the names that I've kind of like gone, let's have this, and then we've like picked out of those names. So Wolf was our 4th baby name, which I loved, but Eddie absolutely hated. So my final boy's name on my list in my top 5 is Rocky. Now again, it is a bit of a name out there that probably a lot of people will be like, what the heck? But I absolutely loved Rocky. Rocky would have been a name that one of my children would have been called, and the only reason it hasn't been used is because my eldest cousin has a son called Rocky and he beat me to the name. So when we found out that he had a Rocky, obviously then we wasn't going to use it. So that is the reason why we have never used Rocky, but both me and Eddie both really love the name Rocky. We loved all the Rocky movies. We just think the name is just such a cool boy's name, but it also had followed through as he grew up a lot older. I just love the name. Absolutely gutted that we never got to use it, but yeah, the 5th and final name that we would have used was Rocky. So going on to my 5 fave girls' names that I really loved but I won't be using. The first girl's name that I absolutely loved was Monica. Monica is just such a pretty girl's name. Obviously I very first heard it in Friends, which was absolutely been out like donkey's years. Loved it in there and just thought, oh, that's such a cool girl's name. Don't know why we haven't used it, to be honest. It's always been there floating about. We were actually only saying when I was actually putting this video together, me and Eddie was like, wonder why we never use Monica. It's just such a nice girl's name. I just can't really say much more about it. It's a very unused one. Don't know anyone personally called Monica. And yeah, I can't really say much more about it. It's just a nice all-round girl's name that's not overly used and just straight to the point name and pretty easy to spell. So my first one was Monica. The second one that is on my list is Shelby. Now Shelby again is not really a popular name. It's something, again, I have never met a Shelby in my whole entire life. The only Shelby that I actually have ever heard of was on the film Steel Magnolias, which is one of my all-time fave films. And I remember Julia Roberts playing the character Shelby, and she was such a pretty actress in that movie. But it just always stuck with me as a kid, and I always remember thinking, oh, if I ever have a baby, I think I might call it Shelby, you know, when you're like 5 or 6 and you've watched the film. So yeah, Shelby is just a beautiful girl's name. You can imagine a really pretty, just, you know, really easygoing girl called Shelby. Yeah, so Shelby is number 2. So my third baby name for a girl, which I absolutely loved but I ain't using, is Daphne. Daphne is just such a cool girl's name. I mean, you all are probably going to think my list of names is absolutely bonkers, but as I said, I don't like names that everybody is using. I like to be a little bit different, but not different as in like crazy, ooh, different as in like I've named it something weird and wonderful. I just like names that I don't walk down the street and everybody's called that, or I go across the road and everybody's called that, or I'm always hearing it shouted in a supermarket. I just like names that are proper names but aren't overused, and Daphne is such a gorgeous girl's name. Absolutely love it. Don't know anyone else called Daphne, and an absolute winner was the fact that my kids loved Scooby-Doo, and obviously the gorgeous looking one on Scooby-Doo is called Daphne. and yeah, I love Daphne. I don't know why we haven't used it again. I don't know why it's not our name that's not off this list, but I found it really hard to pick names, and Daphne is definitely a name that I absolutely loved. Now the fourth girl's name, again, that we loved, but Eddie was just a tiny bit not keen on it, was Stella. And the only reason he wasn't keen on it was because of the fact that it's like a lager, and he was like, people think that it's a drink, and I'm like, yeah, but there's like Stella McCartney, oh, let's have Stella, it's, you know, it's a really good girl's name. This is when we're choosing our second girl, and he was like, no, maybe for a middle name I can deal with it, but I'm not that keen on it for a first name. And that's just his personal preference. And like I said before, he's quite fussy with names being of objects, places, flowers, etc, etc. So that always put him off the name Stella, but I absolutely love the name Stella. So that is my fourth girl's name. My fifth and final girl's name, which has always been there as high as can be but never been used, is Anastasia. This is a very long name. It's a very, very uncommon name. It's one that I do not know anybody called Anastasia at all, but from very first getting pregnant with my first child, I remember thinking what an absolutely gorgeous girl's name it was. I remember reading somewhere there was a Russian princess called Anastasia, and I just thought, oh, if they've got dark hair, and I just imagine this like dark haired child called Anastasia, yeah, definitely loved that name. And I think the only reason we didn't pick it was because, one, saying it can sound, you've got to sound it out properly, and two, spelling it out for the child is quite a long name, and I think like the child's friends, etc, might struggle at the beginning, you know, to actually write it correctly. So Anastasia was my fifth and final girl's name, which I loved, but we won't be using. So that is it. That is my 5 girls, 5 boys names that I absolutely loved, but we won't be using. If we were to have a 7th child, which I'm not sure if we are going to do, maybe, maybe not, who knows. I mean, we've only got Vinny, our youngest, which is only like 9 months, so, you know, cards are up there. I don't know if we could, we couldn't. People keep asking us, are we going to have a 7th, and we just say now, we don't know. But hey, oh, just don't know. So yeah, that is basically it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't already subscribed to me, then please hit that subscribe button, and there is also a notification bell that you can click on, so that if you want to know when my next video is up and running, it will automatically tell you, so you will never miss one of my videos. And also, please feel free to leave any comments down below. I would love to hear from you. And oh, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, because I like to see lots of thumbs up. And that is it. I will catch you all again in another video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks a lot. Bye.